Hey everyone, hey good people, glad that you're here. Another podcast episode of Sit Down Hawaii. I'm Josh, your host, and we're glad that you're here. Listen, we are a podcast where we talk about what is a pressing issue with people that can make decisions. And so I want to start off right from the beginning to say we are not a political podcast. But right now, it is election season. And so remember, get out there and vote. This is your chance to exercise your right for who you believe in to represent you. And I'm really excited because today we're going to be diving into District 2024. And District 24 is Waikiki, parts of Moiliili, parts of Ala Moana. And I've got to preface this because we've sent out emails to every district, incumbent, challenger, and we've got a bunch of different responses. But today, both of these amazing people responded pretty quickly too, and it was seamless and it was respectful. And I thought that I was thinking, hey, if you're in Waikiki, this is a really, really, really good episode for you. So with that, I want to introduce and welcome our guests. Thank you so much for being here, both of you. Adrian Tan, thank you for being here. And Jillian, thank you so much. Jillian Anderson, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, it really is. It's an amazing Monday. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want to lay out the foundations for what we do here, and then we're going to just jump right in, okay?
Okay. Cool.
So we have 3 rules here. The first rule is that we want to make sure we're just setting the foundation to have fun. And we want to just keep respect at the forefront. So you don't need to agree with everything that, what you both are saying, but let's have some respect. Number 2 is we want to make this about the people of Waikiki. So you can go off topic and you can go as big or as broad or as detailed as you want. My job is to make this about the people of Waikiki. And number 3, I hope we have fun. So if we can do that, then we can move forward. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay. So this is our talk story segment. Basically, these are facts that we're just going to have conversations around. And I'll start with you. We'll go with you, Adrian, with our first fact. So one of the more pressing issues in Waikiki is affordable housing. Mm-hmm. And so a statistic is median home prices in Waikiki are exceeding over $1.4 million, well above state average. So how do you plan to address the growing house crisis in District 24 and ensure that residents are priced out of their own neighborhoods?
This is a really good question. Thank you so much for having us, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
When it comes to housing, it's people who are affected like me. With my resume, who's my age, the idea of home ownership is really out of the question right now for us. Mm. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that, people like me can still be able to buy into a home, whether it's easing the HUD standards so that we can use a lot of our grants that goes toward down payment for first-time home buyers, because it's really difficult to save for a down payment. That's the number one barrier right now, to ensuring that we have an abundance of housing supply so that we can use the market to address the shortage of housing right now, mm-hmm. to even trying to find incentives so that it's easier to create infrastructure, to pay for infrastructure for many of these private developers, because we put the infrastructure costs on the private developer, and oftentimes that is what leads to the high costs of living.
Yeah.
I could say that this past year, the legislature passed a bill that made it easier to convert a lot of our commercial buildings right now to residential buildings, because as we've seen after COVID, many companies decided to move towards work from home or remote working. And that frees up a lot of spaces in these commercial buildings. One good example that we have done is use this building in downtown, where now it was once a commercial building. Now it's a mixed-use building where many residents are living there through affordable rentals. And if we were able to keep doing this, we'll be able to chip away at our housing shortage slowly but surely, and eventually we'll meet that demand that we have to face.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you're listening to this, Civil Beat did a really good job kind of breaking down these questions. And if you really want details, go there. Go to Civil Beat. You can even look online. There's a lot, and you'll be able to see the stark differences between these two. But same question to you, and I'll just repeat it just so you have it. So Jillian, Housing costs in District 24 have surged. It exceeds about 1.4 million, well above the state average. And the question is, how do you plan to address the growing housing crisis in District 24 and ensure that residents aren't priced out of their own neighborhoods?
Yeah, so affordable housing is probably single-handedly the largest crisis facing our generation. Gone are the days where you could have that dream to buy a home, have generational wealth, have this large asset that you can rely on. And it's really, really disappointing to even hear the definition of affordable now, because if 1.4 million is that average, even something in this high $700,000 or $800,000 range with the salaries that we have is just not sustainable. So I think that's something that is being overlooked oftentimes, is that we have three main economic drivers when you look at the total scenario. You have price, supply, and demand. And we keep talking about supply, that we don't have enough units. But in a beautiful state like Hawaii, and especially a beautiful district like Waikiki, demand is always going to be there. So I think instead of looking at this, that we just need to keep building and eventually we'll make supply meet demand and then everything will be affordable, is not realistic. Instead, we have to be more creative with the price factors. We have to make this something that if we have some sort of regulations or make it that local people are really the priority for buying homes, making sure that when homes are put on the market, that we incentivize, if it's a foreign investor or a mainland developer, that goes to the local people first, and that's tied to local median incomes versus just building and letting them sell for whatever they can make off of it. That's really the policy positions that we need to be looking more into.
Yeah, you both brought up really good points, and I kind of want to take a second. You've talked about affordability, and you've talked about what's going on in Waikiki. Let's talk a little bit about your background in Waikiki. I know that in Civil Beat and a few other things, you do kind of go into like where you went to school and whatnot. But I kind of have a question of like, why Waikiki? And maybe we could start with you because I gave him the first question. But like, what is Waikiki? What does Waikiki mean to you? And how has that been your home? And maybe a memory about Waikiki? You've talked about what it used to feel like and look like.
Sure. So my parents are originally from New York, so their history in Waikiki began back in the 80s. They came and vacationed here. Of course, like so many people loved it, said one day it's going to become their home. They bought a few properties, were lucky enough back in that day to get some investment properties. They then eventually made the jump when I was just 3 years old from New York City, realizing that you can't raise a child in a one-bedroom. So either try to move to the suburbs in New York or try that dream in Waikiki. So since I've been 3, I've lived in Waikiki. And I mean, it's my home now and hopefully will be my home all my life. I can't think of any place quite like it where you can just walk 10 minutes out of your front door and feel like you're on vacation. So I really, really love it. I love the beach. I would say that that's maybe my favorite memory, is just having it be so accessible. About every weekend for my whole life, I've been at a beach one way or another. So I just love the location of Waikiki, the people, the energy, and it's just a wonderful place to live.
It's definitely an energy. Adrian, same to you. What's your thoughts on Waikiki?
My thoughts on Waikiki is that it's very diverse. You see people from all different backgrounds, from all over the world, living in Waikiki. Waikiki is where I had, my first job. Actually, I had 2 jobs growing up.
What were they?
I worked at L&L as a cashier,
Nice.
then I worked in a small little crepe shop that sells Japanese crepes in Waikiki. It was right next to now the Aloha Lani Hotel. It used to be under the Pacific Beach Hotel.
Yeah.
But for me, Waikiki is home. Born and raised here in Hawaii, went to our public schools. My family's here. And I had the opportunity to stay in the mainland. Could have gotten a job anywhere in New York or Chicago. But I came back home because, I wanted to care for my grandmother who, she's aging in place right now. Just like many of us, we have those family roots that we are taught to care for our kapuna. And I wanted to work for my mom's small business. Came back, became a realtor, and I was not getting any clients. Who's going to trust a college student, a recent college grad, with the biggest financial decision of their life, right? So I took an internship at the state capitol, or it became a session hire under Speaker Emeritus Calvin Say.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught me a lot. I remember my first interview with him, because there was multiple. He asked me like trivial questions just about the state, and I had no idea what it is. And a lot of times I was guessing it. But I was curious, and I told him, you know what, I will learn them, even if I got them wrong. I was lucky to get the job, and it was like the best job I've had. And I stayed in public service. That's where I fell in love with public service. I worked for Senator Chang afterwards, and then eventually ran for office because, again, people like me with my resume are leaving and they're being forced out, and I wanted to do something.
Yeah. I want to kind of go into, just because you went into Rep Say, was it Calvin Say, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just tell us a little bit about your background, because I want to be fair.
Yeah, I also had experience at our state capitol. I've been there now for 3 years. So my first legislative session, I was an analyst and researcher. So I really started with the nitty gritty of the politics and the policy. And then following the 2022 election, I joined Representative Gene Ward's office as his chief of staff, who's our minority policy leader.
Gotcha. This is going to sound crazy, but is there any chance that you guys have like passed each other on the street in Waikiki, like how everybody's walking? Has that ever happened?
Well, I go to the neighborhood board all the time, and she's there.
But I mean, like casually, like I'm going to go get coffee. Like, does that happen? Because you both live in Waikiki.
But I think what you need to know is that Waikiki is, even though it's dense, it is huge.
Yeah. It's kind of like
And-
New York, I guess, in that way. Yeah.
And
See
there's a
that.
lot of people walking.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Maybe when we just haven't known each other, or maybe not. We don't know.
Right. No. I keep thinking like, go get coffee. Like, hey, what's up? How's it going? And it's like, go your own ways.
We
But
got coffee once.
doesn't really happen. Yeah. That's cool. It's really interesting. Thank you for that. Yeah, I think our homelessness or houselessness rather, and how that's been happening has been crazy. And I want to push us to homelessness. So we talked a little bit about the affordable housing, thing, and now we're going to go into homelessness. And so there's going to be a question to you, Jillian. Okay, so Hawaii has one of the highest rates of homelessness per capita in the nation. District 24 is no exception. So the question is, with homelessness being such a pressing issue, how will you work to provide both immediate and long-term solutions to reduce homelessness in your district?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. My largest motivator on a daily basis for running for office is homelessness. Every day on my commute to work, I go down just Kalakaua and Beretania, and I see so many homeless individuals, so many people who need help. And it's not the Hawaii that I grew up in. It's not necessarily something that we just need to accept. And it's frustrating to see us at an inflection point now and seeing the situation getting worse. I remember just 2 years ago, I was sitting in the gallery of our Hawaii State Capitol watching Governor Josh Green give his State of the State address. And he was saying that this is something that we're going to reduce by 50% during his term, but yet the latest point in time count shows that it's only increasing. And in Waikiki, that's one of those areas where we're just seeing the brunt of it. So I think that we really need to approach homelessness differently. So many things that we've been trying are temporary, and we need to look at it really as a continuum of care. So you can't just give somebody medical treatment or a meal for the night and expect that they're somehow going to get out of this horrible cycle. We need to really invest in them and get them to where they can hold a job, they can have housing and be able to be financially sufficient. If they have mental health issues, we need to give them that care. I am really encouraged that they are recently opening up some more behavioral crisis health centers. There's one that just opened in Iwalei. Having been to the ER multiple times and seeing people there who that's not the place for them, but to go and just get a meal, get temporary treatment, and then be put back on the streets, literally right outside Queens Hospital. So to have places that are designated where they can be there for the long term to get that treatment, I think that is much better for us as a society in the long run. Secondly to that, though, another issue that I'm just seeing with my own eyes in Waikiki is that we're having a lot of people coming from out of state. And that's just the reality of the situation. We did have a bill passed that was able to put some funding towards getting some airfare tickets for people to return home. But we do have complications in the sense that you need to actually have somebody on the other end to receive that individual, whether it's family or friends or a shelter. Versus there's other states, especially as we enter the colder winter months, that are just sending people here. And I've been at baggage claim in our airport here in Honolulu, seeing clearly homeless individuals just looking at maps, wondering, where do I go? And Waikiki is one of those places where you can sort of blend in, you can stay on the beach, you're given a meal, given some cash. And I think that that's really something that's been overlooked for far too long. And if we really address that and focus on that, I think that we can make a big dent in our homelessness crisis.
Yeah. Adrian, it's the same question. I'm just going to say it again just to just refresh our memories. But yeah, it's very interesting. Have you seen like actual people, you know them by name, that live on the street that were sent here from another city or state? Have you seen that?
I don't tend to interact just because a lot of those people also have mental health issues and I don't really feel comfortable. But you see people with suitcases, people in warm winter clothing, where it's clear that they're not just somebody who's down on their luck from down the road.
Yeah, what about you? Have you seen these?
I don't
people?
ever like to assume that someone's from the mainland just because they have a suitcase or a backpack.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think what we have to understand is that, homelessness is not a crime. So we should stop treating them like criminals. And we need to treat them with dignity. And that is why, at the legislature, I really fought for initiatives so we can use Medicaid dollars to start paying for, rent rather than one night at a hospital room. You think about it. One studio condominium for 1 month could cost up to $1,200. But one emergency stay for someone who is facing homelessness will cost the same amount, if not more. And you got to ask yourself, well, which is the better way to spend your money, right? You'd rather put them in 1 month of secured housing rather than just one night in an emergency room. At least you can get to that person to give them the help they need. And I actually am really proud of the work that we've done in Waikiki. We've partnered with the Waikiki Business Improvement Association. We partnered with the Waikiki Improvement Association. We partnered with members of the neighborhood board. We partnered with HPD to launch Safe and Sound. Phase 1 of Safe and Sound was to get geographic locations for repeat offenders, and we were able to make it a lot safer in Waikiki. And phase 2 is working with the Institute of Human Services to get more outreach to our houseless population. I'm really proud that this past year I was able to secure about $3 million for mobile clinics to operate outside of normal service hours. Because, again, I want to treat them with dignity and some respect. When we are able to get them these treatments, when they are, when it's in the evening where not many people are running around, bustling around, and, they're oftentimes not willing to accept help if, you're approaching them during the day. Because, again, it is a little bit shameful for them. And we grew up with this culture of shame. So if we were able to treat them with dignity by giving them the help they need, after hours, they're more inclined to take these services, and we can get them off the street, get them a good job, a nice home, and get them back to productive society. At the same time, the legislature has also been partnering up with a lot of these organizations, putting funding to the Hawaii Health Harm Reduction Center, where I sit on the board I formerly sit on the board to Institute of Human Services, even to Waikiki Business Improvement Association, where we're able to give a grant to them so they can hire more Aloha ambassadors to go around Waikiki and to service these houseless individuals.
Yeah, I think there's a very interesting thing going on here, specifically in Waikiki, because we did podcasts with other neighborhoods, and it seems like people are being pushed out. And that was kind of like a thought, was people are leaving Waikiki to go into other neighborhoods. But how do you balance that? And this is just kind of up in the air. We can talk about this, and I don't know the solution, so I'm not coming to you with the solution. But how do we balance treating people with respect and dignity, being able to have them still, sleep on beaches or whatnot, but still this massive tourism is going on in Waikiki, and you hear it from a lot of people, right? Lately on social media, because that's kind of where I live, is people will come in and they'll do tours, right, about Waikiki, and they always talk about the beautiful stay and the beautiful oceans, but there's always that almost, I don't want to, it's always seen as well, there is clearly homeless here in Hawaii. Yeah. And so how do we balance that? Is there a way to do that? Have we addressed that? And this is not to anyone in particular, but have we thought about that? What can we do to still make Hawaii an amazing getaway place? Spend your time in Waikiki, come do it out here with us, but also not hide homeless, but how do we do that?
Like I said, it's about, giving them the services to them through mobile clinics and addressing them with dignity, and to treat them like humans. Because when we treat them like humans, they're more inclined to start acting, and being part of society, and, they feel like they belong. That is the crux of the matter right there. And, we have to put more money into mental health. We have to even elect a president that prioritizes funding, federal dollars to go towards these issues. Mm-hmm. We have to work with our nonprofits like IHS and HCRC to go out there into the community to give them these services they need, and, offer them help, and hey, we would like to provide you with these areas. One thing that I have proposed is to look at people who have been formerly incarcerated and the time that they're going to be released. Before then, they should start taking some courses within the criminal justice system to learn basic outreach, basic social services. Because sitting on the board of HCRC, I can tell you that there is a shortage of social workers and outreach workers, and we are desperate to hire them. Why not utilize those that have fell through the cracks of the system to fill those cracks up and to help people, go back into society while reducing recidivism rates so they have a job and they can get housing.
Interesting. How was that met? You said you proposed it. What happened with it?
It made all the way to conference, but the issue has always been, what their designee is going to be. What kind of training do they need? Because for a social worker, you need a master's in training. So I'm currently having talks with Hawaii Pacific University to see if they could do a program, and they are very much on board and excited about this. The College of Social Workers, they're really excited about this. We're still working on it. And hopefully, we can start getting these inmates the training that they need so they can start working at HCRC or IHS.
Gotcha. And your thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, just something I think part of this conversation that hasn't been mentioned yet is the Kauhale model. And that's where we can have some tiny home villages where individuals who are homeless would be able to go and receive the medical treatment, receive the social worker consultations, or be able to meet with somebody who can do some job placement, some housing placement. So I really think that model is something that we maybe haven't seen put through to its fullest extent. It's been sort of interesting that we are seeing them popping up, but they're closing. They don't have electricity. Just the idea is there. And I think if we had them maybe closer to locations like Waikiki, where we do see a lot of people just out on the streets, and we give them that other opportunity where it's not necessarily a shelter, it's not a program that they have to commit to, but all the services are there, including shelter, and being able to balance out who's within our dense tourism district and maybe who's right on the outskirts, but is then seeking ways out of that cycle, is something that I think that we can look into putting more funding into.
Yeah, it's interesting because you're both here, and my research, you're both well educated. So congratulations. You've both gotten higher education, and we're talking about giving people the tools through education to doing those sort of things. And I think that's definitely a good direction. I want to kind of pull it towards that. So we'll go right into education, specifically in our district, District 24. It's about public schools. So the issue, District 24 is home to some of Hawaii's top schools, but there are still gaps in educational access and performance, especially in public schools. How will you, I like this statistic. While Punahou is highly ranked, nearby public schools face challenges with lower proficiency rates in reading and math. And this is for you, Adrian. How will you ensure that public schools in District 24 receive the support they need to improve educational outcomes?
Thank you. Yeah. I understand the issue. And I think what we really need to do is have an open line of communication with our teachers and our principals at both of the elementary schools in the district, and the high schools, Kaimuki and McKinley High School and Washington Middle School. As a representative, I have created a office where anyone can just text me, including our principals. If they need this, bam, they got it. Whether it's capital improvement project funding, all the way to just me showing up to a class so that I can talk to kids or welcome them at the Capitol. One initiative that I'm really proud of is that we finally opened a Ready Keiki preschool at Ala Elementary School to expand access to early childhood education for many of our residents, because many of our residents and their kids struggle with childcare. It's actually over 50% of students going to Jefferson are on subsidized lunch program meals right now. That is very sad. And by opening up this preschool, it provides access to many families who childcare would be out of reach for them, to have that childcare, that early childhood education, so our kids will be better prepared when they enter high school. Overall, when it comes to our education system as a whole, I think that we really need to look at schools at an individual basis. Some schools have too many teachers and not enough students. Some schools have too many students and not enough teachers. And what that will require is an adequacy study. And I proposed this to HSTA, and I'm proud that they endorsed me, because they also think that there needs to be an adequacy study so that we can better balance out the needs of our kids in every single neighborhood in our schools.
Oh. Jillian, anything to that? Let me just reread that question. How will you ensure that public schools in District 24 receive the support they need to improve educational outcomes?
Yeah, so sadly, the vast majority of headlines that come out regarding our Department of Education are negative. We see that we don't have working fire alarms. We have massive amounts of funding that lapse. We have our teachers not getting paid. We have some of the lowest test scores in the nation. We have a lot of students who aren't going to school. The list goes on. So I really think that the legislature really needs to take it upon itself to look at the Department of Education and what's going on, especially as it pertains to funding, not then translating to positive outcomes. I think also, in addition, we need to look at our curriculum in our public school systems. How can we beef that up? How can we make sure that everybody has equal opportunities in our public schools? And it's really, really a shame. I unfortunately didn't get to attend a public school system here in Hawaii, but everything that I see about our Department of Education, I think it's sadly mismanaged, and we need to really invest much more in our keiki.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, I graduated from public school. I lived through the Lingo Administration's Furlough Friday program.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely had a huge negative effect on my fellow peers.
Mm.
And that is why an adequacy study is so important, because, Ms. Anderson talks about, we put funding into these schools, but we're not getting the outcomes we need. What she failed to mention is a plan. How is she going to find that out? We need an adequacy study.
Do you want to comment on that? Plans, thoughts?
Same as what he has just mentioned, yeah. Looking a full audit to see where these money's going, why is it being mismanaged? And they can't
it's not really mismanagement. It's really about, the funds not in the right place.
Yeah, earlier this year, there was about, I think, $500 million that lapsed. That was for capital improvement projects. And knowing how the legislature works, it takes a lot of effort to get these capital improvement project proposals through the system for the money to be earmarked. And then for the Department of Education to have that in their hands and not be able to spend it in a proper manner in terms of timeline. I think it's really just looking at, like you mentioned, who is in charge of this and how can we make sure that this doesn't happen? Because at the end of the day, every year matters when it's in the course of our students.
I think we need to clear about what it means when it lapses. When it means it lapses, it's not mismanagement. It's just that the money was sitting there and they just haven't touched it because no one was bidding for the contract to build the project that the money was allocated for, or the money was not enough, so they couldn't move forward. It's about coming back to the legislature and giving us the right estimates. Every school has to do that.
Yeah, I think I can hear both of your sides. It seems to me like we can all agree on that there needs to be an audit and that we need to know more information to make the right course of direction, right? And I guess the thought is for the everyday person. Listen, you're both smart. I'm just a regular person here. It seems like government, like we want these things for our kids, and it just feels like it's taking so long. And I can only speak for my district because this is a permanent issue on the Leeward Coast as well. It's like, give us what we need to do so our kids can get smarter. I'm a public school graduate. I also went to college in New York as well, and it's this thought of like, man, I see our kids doing well everywhere. Like when you see the Little League World Series and you see our musicians, and it's kind of, look at our former presidents. Like we've had really successful people that have come out of Hawaii. And it just blows my mind that we continually have low scores in our education. What would it look like if we had top scores? Because I can agree, I don't want to speak for both of you, but it feels like we want better education for our kids. I don't want to, camp here, but if I'm missing anything or if I misrepresent or spoke in a way that you don't approve of, please let me know.
No, you're absolutely right. I want higher test scores. I know Ms. Anderson wants higher test scores too. And the way we can get there is by looking at our departments and allocating the money where it needs to go. Again, some schools have too few teachers. Some schools have too many teachers. We have to look at our schools and how we fund them to see what's the best way to make them sustainable.
Nice. Okay, well, I'm hoping that, I promise you, one of you will be elected. I know that much. Mm-hmm. And I'm hoping in a few years, whenever that looks like, I want to have you back here and we're going to look at those numbers and just say, have we made any have we moved forward on this issue? Because I think people of Waikiki do want to move forward on this issue. I want to do a quick little fun game and then a quick break. Sounds good? Okay. So this is a simple one. What is one thing that the audience may not know about you? I'm going to keep it really general. And as you're thinking of that thought, I'm going to just do a quick thing. Hey, you're hearing two young, bright, in my opinion, smart candidates. Exercise your right to vote. Get out there, spend the time, learn what they're talking about, because their decisions or your decision to support one of these people is going to matter in this next season. Okay, let's start with you, Adrian. One thing about you that people probably don't know.
I think one thing about me that people don't know is that I once got a hole in golf.
What?
Yes.
That's like almost impossible.
It was the par 3 course at Waikiki Golf Course, and I got a hole in one on the 11th hole.
Like, are you an avid golfer?
No, I'm not. So it was purely luck, and they say that it's better to be lucky than skillful. But I think another thing about that people don't really know about me is that I like to cook. I like to make a lot of my own food. I don't really like to eat out because of that.
Yeah.
So
why eat out when you can make it better, right?
Yeah, it's therapy for me.
Yeah, I totally feel you on that. Okay, your turn, and you can do a bonus one too if you want. But yeah, something.
Well, something that I don't really get to mention too often because it doesn't really come up in this environment, but one of my biggest passions is ballet. I've been dancing ballet since I was 12. I'm on point, and it's just really a great outlet. It works your body, your mind, your soul, and it's really something that I enjoy and passionate about.
Wow. Awesome. Okay, listen, we're going to take a quick break. Hang on, do me a favor, share this with somebody. You're watching this and you're probably from Waikiki. You got a friend, a family member, somebody who needs to hear this. Go ahead and share. Also, leave some comments down in the comments below. See you in a little bit. Thank you. Hey, hope you're having a good time on the podcast. Wanted to take a quick break to bring today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Sweet Life Tea. It's a tea that helps people get through anxiety. Listen, I have anxiety flying. I have anxiety kind of in a lot of areas. And it was something that was affecting me. And so I found this tea. It has organic, natural, vegan, non-GMO ingredients that when you put them all together, it just helped me relax. So there's things like chamomile, licorice root, lavender. And I felt like I wanted to bring you something that helped me. So if you're struggling with anxiety and you just need something to kind of relax that's organic, go ahead and go to sweetlifetea.com. Put in the code SITDOWNHAWAII for 10% off. Okay, looking forward to the rest of the podcast. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Sit Down Hawaii. I'm Josh, your host. We're here for District 24. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Jillian, for being here. I really appreciate it. I just want to lay this out again. We are not a political podcast. We are a podcast to talk about issues and ask the questions that you want answered. And so we are in an election season. Again, go out there and vote. But I want to jump right in. So I missed a really important thing in Waikiki, and that's condo insurance. And the condo insurance rates have been going up, and there's clearly been, the neighborhood has been talking about it. And so we want to jump right into that. What are your thoughts around that, and what's going on?
Yeah, when I first ran back in 2022, my top issue was crime and public safety. And it's funny now, just 2 years later, everyone's talking about condo insurance. And this is something that really emerged following last August's Maui wildfires, is that I won't go too far into the details, but we're seeing this massive ripple effect, not only with all the risk and payouts that are going on with Maui, but growing disasters worldwide. So this is a problem much bigger than just our state, but it's impacting so many people on a monthly basis in Waikiki. Just my condo alone, we saw a 300% increase in our condo insurance, and we know that that's going to keep going up now year over year. So what happened now on a state level, an executive legislative task force was put together, and they came up with a couple of suggestions. Governor Green on August 7th of this year declared an emergency proclamation over the issue. And where we stand now is that we're looking at actually reactivating something called the Hurricane Relief Fund that was instituted following Hurricane Iniki back in 1992 when the hurricane insurers left the market. And there's about $170 million that's been sitting in that fund that we're looking to maybe reactivate, add to, in order to create an alternative insurance market for condos that cannot afford these expensive premiums or lost their insurance altogether. So I think that this is, looking at next legislative session, going to be a top priority to not only create this like last resort for condominiums, but also helping those who just can't afford a couple of extra $100 per month. I get calls now in my current job on almost a weekly basis with people begging, saying that this is just something that's unsustainable. It's like they just took on a second mortgage just to pay their maintenance fees or just to pay for their insurance. And also what is impacting Waikiki that we're starting to see is that this is impacting resale. You're going to sell your unit, you have a much less attractive condo because you have this insurance premium. So we're seeing sales falling. We're seeing people having their properties on the market for longer. So I think that not only do we need to reactivate this hurricane relief fund, but we need to be really creative with how can we help lower this financial burden for the everyday condo owner.
Yeah. Adrian, what's your thoughts on that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I actually sit on that task force that made those that are currently making those recommendations for the upcoming legislative session for condominium crises. I can tell you what the legislature has done is that we passed a CPACER bill so that condominiums can start getting into these no interest loans for long overdue maintenance and repairs for the condos to bring down to make sure that they are fortified. And hopefully we can talk more about what it means for the future of condominiums as we get into the environment, because it is a natural disasters thing that caused a lot of it. Through the task force, we are able to continue to work with stakeholders such as the Hawaii Board of Realtors, to the DCCA, to the insurance counselors, and we are actively looking at, like Ms. Anderson said, reworking the fund so that it can start underwriting insurance policies for condominiums, because the fund was created mostly for single families back in to fund those single families and to address the availability aspect. But when we introduced the bill, it only addressed availability. It didn't address affordability. And what we are looking at now is because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac requires 100% coverage of insurance in order for them to write a loan for someone to buy a condo or a house. Insurance companies are not providing 100% coverage because of what's going on in the current climate. We are seeing whether or not the insurance companies can cover part of it and the fund can cover the rest of it to provide that 100%. And we're still waiting on Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to get back to us. But I want to, now that since we're on this issue, Ms. Anderson sent out a mailer to the district saying that I've been a very quiet voice on condominium issues, saying that I never held an in-person town hall. When in actuality, I held a town hall with Speaker Saiki, with Senator Moriwaki, with Rep. Nishimoto to inform the public about what's going on. And we had to hold it in McKinley High School's auditorium because there was nowhere in the district that can house and accommodate so many people that cared about this issue. So there was the town hall. It was also the fact that I appeared on PBS Insights with Sue Savio and Victor Brock to talk about this issue to inform our constituents. And we held another town hall on Zoom for the constituents to inform them about condominiums. So it's just super misleading to send out a mailer when I didn't see you attend any of those town halls.
Any thoughts on that, Jillian?
Yeah, I did just mention that just because I had actually organized a town hall in Hawaii Kai, and we have a similar situation where a lot of those who are affected are kapuna. So it was more based on location and speaking with people who live in Waikiki. It was just in terms of communication and location.
Well, again, like I said, if you had done your homework, you would know that many Waikiki students go to McKinley High School. So it wasn't a location issue. It was about finding the best place to accommodate everyone that wanted to go. We ran out of packets to hand out to people because it was so popular, and we need to get. We had to send someone to the Capitol to print some more. But to say that I never held a town hall is extremely misleading and does a disservice to the people of Waikiki.
You just mentioned in the district.
Well, again, the district goes to McKinley High School.
I got a question for both of you, and I don't know this, so I'm going to just put myself in this position. They added more insurance to my own home, right? And this is, I'm not in the district, but it just seems like it's a statewide thing. Question I have is, well, are we not, and I don't know this answer, and you might know this, Adrian, or you might know it, but are we not using the bidding system to keep these insurance rates down? Like, how does that work? Because we just got a thing in the mail that said you're now paying 55% more, and that equates to a lot of money. And I don't have that kind of money, right? So it does put a pinch on people. But what are we doing? Are we not saying, well, let's go find another insurance company that can at least be more competitive? Or, I come from the rule of thumb of like, let's get 3 competitors and see what that looks like. Do you know any of these answers, or is this something, what does that look like?
So the reason why insurance premiums are high is because insurance markets are no longer writing, or they're writing 80% and not 100%, only partial insurance coverage. And like I mentioned earlier, you need 100% coverage in order to get a loan to buy a condominium. So when they're leaving these market brand insurance companies, it leaves us to go towards non-market brand. Those that can provide 100% insurance. But those insurances are like exasperately more expensive than the market brand. And that's why we've been so focused on addressing availability by creating this, by allowing the Hurricane Insurance Fund to start underwriting policies for condominiums.
Yeah. Do you have anything in that, or what that looks like? Go ahead.
Yeah, as Rep. Tam mentioned, we have multiple tiers right now in terms of our insurance companies. So we really only have about 3 that are in that main regulated market. We have a couple more that are in the unregulated market, and then we have some like Lloyd's of London that are just charging an arm and a leg for those condos that can't get anything anywhere else. So the situation that we find ourselves is that we really need the insurance companies to stay more than they need us. We can just look at California. They've had a lot of wildfires as well. And major companies like Allstate, State Farm, they're leaving their market. So looking forward, and this is something that we'll see a little later in the year, is that there's a couple of issues right now in our court system where we're seeing the insurance companies trying to recoup money that they paid out to victims of the Lahaina wildfires, and our state's pushing back a little bit on that. So I think based on how that case works itself out, we might see some instability, and that's where our emergency proclamation and trying to build some state-run captive insurance market might help fill a void if we do end up losing a major player. But the reality is that the insurance companies are playing on a global playing field, and we're just one tiny spot in the Pacific, and we're in a situation where we kind of have to yield to their whim.
Yeah, I'm wondering, because this is what I've heard from neighbors. This is not hearsay. This is what's been said. There was a fire in Maui, and that was horrible. It seems like insurance companies are now taking advantage that these things could happen in our neighborhoods. And now they're hiking all these rates up. And it seems like insurance companies are making more money now off of everyday people who are just trying to get by. And I can understand that point of view and what that looks like. I do want to move forward, but do you want to talk about anything else around the condominiums, around insurance?
I'd like to address what the person has said.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this has been going on across the continental United States, especially in Florida, for a very long time. The difference between us and Florida is that Florida saw their condominium insurance slowly increase. And as a result, many of their condominium owners didn't really feel it. But they see it, but they're not really feeling it because it's slowly increasing it. In Hawaii, after the Lahaina wildfires, ours went drastically up out of nowhere. And many people are feeling that. It is up to us to work with the federal government to see what we can do, again, with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. In March, I had the opportunity to go to the White House, and I brought this issue up to them as well. And I know that they're actively working because they understand that this is a major issue across the entire country.
Do you have anything on that? I guess I just want to simplify this. If you got someone in Waikiki right now that's saying this is just ridiculous, this is just getting crazy, what do you tell them? Or what do you say to someone who's like, I can't afford the $400 or $300 that now I have to pay? I get the situation. I understand where we're at, but it seems like the answer is, we're kind of too bad. So what do we tell our people? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that the equivalent to this is like if you're in an automobile accident, your insurance goes up. The entire market really is not for the consumer. You're paying into a bucket of risk, and then when you actually have an event take place, the insurance company is like, we weren't expecting that. Well, what was I paying for, right? So I think that that's where they're looking now to maybe make this state option, and that's something that we can regulate here in the short term. And then maybe as time goes on and we're better able to protect ourselves from hazards like wildfires or other disasters, and we're able to see us as a lower risk as a state, those premiums could come down, and then we'd be able to have more options in the market, have lower premiums. But just being able to possibly build that state-run captive insurance market in the short term is possibly a solution.
Yeah, what would you say to a person in Waikiki?
To a person in Waikiki, I would say that, I understand. I'm facing this issue too because I own my condo and I saw an increase myself. I'm also a realtor, so I work with a lot of people that are facing the same thing. What they can do is to get involved with their condominium association, bring up things that needs to be repaired, actively look at, their expenses, their quarterly revenue, how much they're paying their staff, and to work with your condominium to address these needs to limit the risk factors in your condominium so that more insurance companies will be willing to come back into the market, knowing that many condominiums are, taking these issues seriously and caring for their condominium. And I would like to let them know that, the state, we are actively working really hard with our task force, and we're hoping to get something out. Well, we will get something out by the start of this session. And if we are able to get full agreement from all the stakeholders on what's the best way forward to fund this fund, how to hire the right staff for it, and we've already appointed people to board the fund, we could possibly pass this before session ends to provide immediate relief.
Yeah, it's interesting because insurance is to insure.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't. I guess you would need insurance because our next topic is we're going to be talking a little bit about our environmental sustainability, and whether you believe in climate change, you don't believe in climate change. The facts are that there are a lot of storms and there are a lot of things going on, and Waikiki has a few things that is uniquely threatening Waikiki. So I want to go down that road, and this is going to be for you, Adrian. We'll start there. Here's the issue. District 24 is highly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, including flooding. You emphasize environmental sustainability. How will you lead the district in adopting eco-friendly policies and preparing for the impacts of climate change?
So you talked about whether you believe in climate change or not. Let's be very clear here. Climate change is real and it is a fact. And it's important to elect leaders that believe that climate change is not some hoax from China, because that impacts many of the federal funds when it goes to coastal protection, environmental impact, to renewable energy. All these funds are dependent on elected leaders that actually believe in climate change and know that it's a fact. So what are we doing about Waikiki specifically? We see erosion from the beach every single year, and we still want to maintain it. So we put capital improvement projects for sand replenishment almost every single year. But outside of that, long-term wise, we are working with the UHC grant with Senator Moiliili so that we can collect more community input on what the future of Waikiki looks like. We've had stakeholder meetings at the Ala Golf Club, at the Waikiki Community Center for resiliency. Because what we understand about Waikiki is that if it gets flooded, many of our residents are going to be stuck because the elevators are not going to work. Mm-hmm. And through my office, we've also worked and are currently working with the Army Corps of Engineers to see what their plans are. So the update that I can give you from the Army Corps of Engineers is that, they're still in the mix of securing funding before they go into design, but they are going to do community outreach on what's the best way forward for the future of the Ala Canal.
Gotcha. Jillian, I'm going to just restate the question again. District 24 is highly vulnerable to effects of climate change, including flooding. You emphasize environmental sustainability. How will you lead the district in adopting eco-friendly policies and preparing for the impacts of climate change?
Yeah, our entire district is so reliant on the coast. Even as you can see on our backdrop here, we have major buildings, we have major economic drivers for our state feet away from the ocean. And what's really, really disturbing as time has gone on is just seeing the lack of upkeep along our shoreline of Waikiki. If you try to walk right now from the Outrigger to the Sheridan, you cannot. The Halekulani, the Outrigger, Sheridan Waikiki, all their walkways are falling into the ocean. Their sand is disappearing. You just have them quartered off. There's not really plans in place to fix them, to try to keep our shorelines, to maybe construct groins to be able to bring the sand back to the beach. So I think that moving forward, we're talking about all these plans, but we need to start executing because our shoreline is disappearing. Our tourists are noticing. Our hotels are not what they used to be. So I think that that's really something like in the short term is that we need to say that this is our crown jewel of our state and we need to treat it like it is.
Adrian, you have any thoughts on that?
I think I summed it up earlier with all of it. Again, we have to elect leaders that believe climate change is real and don't say that it's some hoax invented by China.
Gotcha. Okay. So we this is our last topic, and then we'll play a quick game. Clearly, this is a problem. We can see it. Sand has been an issue for a while. I mean,
Sand?
just the sand in Waikiki, just replenishment that you mentioned earlier. And I just remember being a young boy, always thinking, "Wow, there's a lot of you got to put more sand." And so I do think, and to your point, Jillian, there's economic development right there, right? And so I want to go into that direction. Here's a statistic. Small businesses account for a large percentage of employment in your district, but many struggle with high taxes and operational costs. What will you do to support, and this is for you, what will you do to support small businesses and foster a more resilient local economy in District 24?
Yeah, my last 3 years in the legislature, it's been disappointing to see how little focus is actually put on our local small businesses. The representative I work for, he's the founder and co-chair of our small business caucus. The bills really never get heard in the sessions. And I talk with different people who are heads of different small business organizations, and they just feel like they're being set up to fail. We have one of the least friendly states in the country to do business in. We have very high regulations, very high taxes. In Waikiki particularly, we have a lot of retail theft, and the businesses are kind of just like they don't want to get involved in a dangerous scenario. You people coming in, just taking things and walking out. So overall, I think that we really need to look at policies that are friendly to our businesses, reduce that taxation, make ourselves entrepreneurial. My background is entrepreneurship. That was my major at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. And I just think that we need to be much more favorable because we've seen so many mom and pop businesses over the last few years, especially coming out of COVID, not being able to survive. And the state has not intervened. We really haven't done anything about it. And we also talk about being sustainable as a state. Yet we're relying so much on these multinational brands to give us our goods, and we're letting our small businesses, our small producers, our agriculture just sort of fade away because they can't survive here financially.
Awesome. Adrian, anything on that? Let me read the question for you. What will you do to support small businesses and foster a more resilient local economy for District 24?
You know, one of the things that I continue to support is diversifying our economy. I think that, we have to look outside just tourism, construction, and the military, because I describe our economy as a three-legged bar stool. You take one of those legs away, no longer becomes a bar stool. You can't sit on it no more. What we have to do is add another fourth leg or a fifth leg so that if one of those legs were to fall, it's still sturdy and you can still sit on it. And that's what happened during COVID. We saw the tourism industry just hit the ceiling and, it fell. And people lost their jobs because of it. And if we're able to go into diversification, such as renewable energy or agriculture, that would do a lot of things to help our small businesses, because we were going to make ourselves more sustainable by growing our food so that we don't have to import so much. Outside of that, the legislature this year passed one of the largest income tax cuts to provide a lot of relief, not just to small business owners, but to local families that might not be small business owners. We were able to pass this tax cut, and many local families are going to see a huge return on investment of that. I'm really honored this year to have the endorsement of the Hawaii Lodging and Tourism Association as well, because they knew that my candidacy would be good for small businesses, because my mom is a small business owner too, and I work for a small business.
Yeah. Do you have any other thoughts on that, Jillian? If not, go ahead.
No, I'm
go ahead. Okay, so this is just a fun segment. What we do is we take your bio, we take the issues, the 5 issues that we spoke about, and we take the demographic of District 24, and then we put it together into ChatGPT, and we asked ChatGPT to ask you both one question that would give the listeners an opportunity to maybe see or hear something in a different perspective. So we're going to start with you, Adrian.
Mhm.
You have a strong focus on business development and empowering local businesses. With the recent economic downturns, especially due to the pandemic, many small businesses are still struggling to recover. How do you plan to support these businesses in the short term? And what long-term strategies do you have to ensure sustainable economic growth for your district?
That's a good question. I think that how to basically help a lot of our small businesses, especially in our district, is by working on the plan that we have for tourism right now. So one of the issues that we currently are facing is that many visitors would come here and they don't want to come back. We have to enhance their experience, whether it's doing environmental protection so that we keep our natural beauty so they want to come back, to keep pushing on our safe and sound projects so that our streets are much safer so they will want to come back. An interesting statistics is that in 2019 we had more tourists than 2006, I think, but yet in 2006 visitor spending was higher. And part of that is because of the proliferation of budget travel. What I'm hoping to do as someone who does work for a small business is that we need to provide more incentives so they can open, provide more grants so that they can thrive better, make it safer on the street. That's why I was a huge supporter of ensuring that the Waikiki Business Improvement Association is up to task with the resources they need so that businesses can open in Waikiki. I know that we don't want big conglomerates coming in, but we're opening a Target soon in Waikiki. We finally have a grocery store, and we have more housing in our district. And by making it more lively, by filling it up with residents and neighbors and visitors, it'll attract more businesses to want to open and to take up some of these empty spaces.
Awesome. Okay, Jillian, here's your question from ChatGPT. Same thing. Adrian has focused on economic development, particularly through technology and business. How would you collaborate with him to ensure these innovation benefits all residents, including those in need of affordable housing?
Ooh, that's a combination of topics there.
Yeah. I just put it all in for ChatGPT and it put it out. I have another one. I asked 2, so I'll give you another one. Here we go. Your platform focuses heavily on environmental sustainability and preserving Hawaii's natural resources. However, District 24 faces significant challenges with affordable housing and development pressure. How do you plan to balance the need for housing with your commitment to environmental sustainability? What specific initiatives would you introduce to ensure that the future development of your district doesn't compromise its natural beauty?
Okay. I'm glad to know the robots aren't smarter than us yet. I don't know if I can necessarily put it out in those terms, but I agree with it. I do think that we have to be much smarter when it comes to urban planning. We have a lot of the NIMBY-YIMBY arguments happening right now. The yes in my backyard, no, not in my backyard. Last year, we had a bill passed that would allow for increased density, basically as a blanket across each county. And I don't think that that's the way to go. We definitely need to balance the environment. We need to balance, if we're going to diversify the economy, say in agricultural fields, what is the best use of our land? And above all, we need to look at our infrastructure. What is our capacity actually able to handle? We have rolling blackouts. We have concerns with our water supply. We have aging roads, aging sewer systems. So all in all, we have to look at it as a big collective. And we can't just be narrow-minded and say, we need more housing, we need to build. We need to say, what are we capable of? What is our population? What are we looking at as a state 10, 20, 30 years down the line? And above all as well, look at our economic diversification as a whole and be able to balance all those factors. So I guess if that answered your question, affordable housing shouldn't be the end-all be-all. That shouldn't necessarily always be the answer. I think that the environment has to be a factor, economy needs to be a factor, and infrastructure all equally.
Awesome.
I think it's just say the ChatGPT questions for both of us were very weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I think what it's doing is it's taking into account what you've said and what people probably understand that you do know, but it gives you a chance to elaborate on some things that maybe weren't as clear, is what I'm assuming, because we've asked this, and it's never been, we've had some questions about what kind of food would you eat in a certain area. It's been really, really different. But yours both came out really heavy. And I was like, ooh, okay, this is saying that. And I think there's something to be said that we're quite young. So, do we know what we're talking about when it comes to these issues? I think is probably something that you at home need to know, that, intelligent, smart, applicable people that know what they're talking about. And maybe ChatGPT is throwing you a bone in that direction, right? Crazy. It's really crazy. Okay, we have our last insight. It's just a fun game. I pulled Henry's Place. Henry's Place is a sorbet spot in Waikiki. And it's a good friend. A good friend of mine was like, hey, we go there, we surf there. We surf in Waikiki, and then we'll go and we'll get some sorbet here. So what I did was we pulled up a menu. The question is, it's a hot day. Let's go with like 2:24 p.m. And you're like, I need to get a flavor. What flavor are you going with and why? So I'm going to give you a second to kind of look at them again. They're right here. You can see them all written out. While you're looking, I'm going to do one more encouragement. Listen, it's been awesome talking about District 24 in Waikiki. If you're listening to this, share this. Tell somebody about what's going on here so you can hopefully be more informed with the candidates that are asking for your vote. Okay, we ready? Did I saw enough? We're good? Okay, we'll start with you, Adrian. What are we going with?
We're going to go with guava.
Guava.
I like a fruity taste, and it's really refreshing. And probably right after I get it, I'm definitely going into like the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Centers in one of the more air-conditioned places to chill out and eat it.
So it's enough to get you cool inside so you can go walk to get cool out.
Cool.
Gotcha. All right, Jillian, what are we going with?
Same thing. Guava.
What?
It's unique enough. It's delicious. Going with guava.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure you guys are running against each other?
I mean, it's who doesn't like guava?
Yeah, that's a good point. Awesome. All right, well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for being here. Again, I'm Josh with Sit Down Hawaii, and we're glad that you've come. Again, I want to get that word out. Go ahead and vote. Take the time. It does matter. Your voice does matter. But until then, see you in the next episode. Aloha. District 24, interesting. Both candidates came prepared, both really smart, and I love that they're both young. Whoever gets selected, I think it's good. It's a really good thing. Genuineness, I think that Miss Anderson had a very genuine tone to her. Like when she was talking, she really knows her stuff. You can see, I think it's maybe the research analyst part of it that, I do think she's been sitting down and she's been thinking these things through, and she does know what she's trying to get accomplished in Waikiki. And I think that Adrian is from Waikiki. Like, even the way that he frames the everyday person, there was a lot that we didn't record, right? That we were talking in the break, and with his mom and his family, you can really see that Waikiki is his home. And if you're in Hawaii, there's not a lot of people that call Waikiki their home, but I do think Waikiki is his home. And he's involved. He went out and just caught her out, on a mailer. And I think her response was great as well. She was talking about something very specific in a different, I think she was saying in a different community. And, you've got to like that. You've got to love that on both sides, that they're willing to say what needs to be said. Let's face it, there's a lot going on in Waikiki, from homelessness to the crazy insurance thing. But what I do know is I do think the future is bright under any of them. And if I was in District 24, I'd be really pleased with my options. So if you're in Waikiki, and I think I probably would have chose like a haupia, chocolate haupia sorbet. But hey, that's me. Anyway, thanks. Aloha.